2018 has been a difficult year for cryptocurrencies. The value of different coins has fluctuated widely from the massive heights of the late 2017. Cryptocurrency is regularly being pronounced as dying or dead. Here to discuss the future of crypto, how it can survive, how it can thrive, and what will happen next, in conversation with CNN's Ivana Kottasová, please welcome to the stage Director of the Litecoin Foundation, Franklyn Richards, founder of Decred, Marco Peereboom, and the CEO of eToro, the largest social investment network in the world, Yoni, Assia.
Thanks for sticking around. Last one of the day, I believe. We will be using Slido for this session, and as you know, the title of the session is crypto here to stay? Which is a question we are asking you. So please cast your votes, and we'll see where we get at the end of the session. We've had a really, really wild 12 months. So we went from nobody talking about crypto to everybody, and I mean everybody talking about crypto, every taxi driver, my mom asking about it, to kind of somewhere in between. So where are we now in the crypto space?
Well, I think brand awareness has reached sort of very high levels. Everybody knows what crypto is. Everybody talked about it. And I think there's somewhat of polarization between people who hate crypto and people who love crypto, but sort of you have to care about it, just like in politics. So now the people who care about crypto need to somehow bring in more people to care about crypto.
Yeah, I think we're in the serious building stage. We see a lot of institutional investors really starting to get involved with this. So the New York Stock Exchange's parent company, ICE Markets, is launching Backit. We have Fidelity Investments launching its own cryptocurrency investment scheme. Yeah, it's getting very serious. Despite the market being in the state it is now, the news coming out is more positive than ever for the growth and future of this space. So it's looking very good.
So I think I have a somewhat simpler answer. Yes, it is here to stay. It has transformed certain parts of the world. You look at Venezuela, you look at some other countries with high inflation. That is it has become the means of payment, because you don't know what your bolivar is going to be worth tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. So if you have crypto, it's actually less volatile. It's really making a change.
A lot of the discussion in the last 12 months, and especially in the more general public space, has been about the price, be it Bitcoin or other alternative coins. Is the price, in a way, a distraction from the technology?
I'll take that one, actually. No, I don't think so. So I think a common misconception is that crypto is like dollars or like euros, but it is not. It is a much higher divisible number. So you can have 1/10 or 1,000 or 1/1,000,000th of a Bitcoin or 1/1,000,000th of a Decred. So I think it's a bit more a perception thing, and explaining people that cents in Decred and Bitcoin are much smaller than 2 digits.
I think the obsession about price is actually a good thing for the narrative, because it enables everyone to talk about something they understand, because it's really easy to understand. It's 6,500, it was 20,000, and before that it was $1,000. And it enables people to communicate on a very basic layer, even if they don't necessarily understand the technology. And second, again, this is an economic revolution, right? This is a new type of an asset class. So obviously the price and the market cap has an impact on sort of the entire size of the economy and the importance of sort of cryptocurrency to the rest of the economy or financial services system.
Ooh. Exciting. Frank, you've seen the impact of the price fluctuations firsthand. So yeah. What do you think? Is there a danger that if there is a bust, and we've seen a big declines in the price, that people will lose interest and write off cryptocurrencies as a casino?
I've seen the space suffer and be far more depressed in 2013. Back then, the price of Bitcoin went down by 85%. Currently, we're still at about 67% down from the all-time high. So it could be far worse. It's very positive that the price is holding where it is, and I think is a testament to the market demand and the maturity of the asset as it becomes more and more used by everyday people and investors alike.
The price, though, has leveled up a little bit. So do you see that as sort of a sign that it's becoming more normal, kind of we are going to see a little bit less of those wild swings and perhaps more wide use?
No, I think right now we're at the quiet before the storm. I think people should not assume cryptocurrencies should or could be stable. I think we're going to see more boom and busts. The next rally is going to make the old rally look like a blip, and the next bust probably the same. So again, when crypto rises, everybody wants to buy crypto. Now everybody's waiting on the sidelines. But if it starts rising 100%, 200%, 300%, then people will start buying more. But when people want to buy more, an interesting thing happens: nobody wants to sell, and therefore the price increase just sharpens and accelerates. So I'm doubtful it's going to stay stable for a long period of time for both directions.
Are we ready to move from the sort of store of value to actual transactions?
Well, I can speak to that a little bit. So actually in the Decred project, we run our entire project using Decred. That is the only coin we have to pay for things. So airplane tickets, the booth, everything was ultimately paid for in Decred. Our volunteers are being paid in Decred, so we have our own little economy going on there. So we kind of don't look at it as much as, what is it worth dollar-wise, right? It's, how many Decred do I get to do this work, and does that add up for me?
I think it's fine that it is a store of value for many people. If you believe the asset's going to go up in value, why would you sell it? It's just pure logic in that sense. But certainly in the first world, for us, it is more of a store of value and an investment. In the third world, this is where it can have huge implications. So we're seeing people build tools to kind of reach and break into that market. So Zulu Republic recently announced Lite for Facebook Messenger. So anybody who has a Facebook account now has a Litecoin wallet. It's completely free and it's built into it. It's trustless, and these are the tools that we're going to see coming out more and more in the future. They also have a pure-based SMS wallet, so even if you don't have an internet connection, like 2.5 billion people on the planet don't, and they don't have a smartphone either, but they do have a feature phone, they too now have access to send Litecoin permissionlessly around the world for pennies, which is huge.
Anything to add? No?
I think what we're seeing here in the conference is actually quite cool. So we launched our wallet, and we're actually giving away free Ether. So we're giving 0.1 Ether, which is about $21. And at the same time, blockchain are giving, I think, $20 worth of Stellar. And I think the BTC.com are giving away free Bitcoin Cash. So everybody's now sort of giving money away to give people money in their wallets to basically start using it, which I think could lead to significant engagement. By the way, nobody's giving Litecoins yet. Yeah. So we're willing to distribute your Litecoins to our users if you want.
Yeah. Cool.
Great. Let's look into the future. One of the things that happened when we saw these very wild swings and everybody was talking about cryptocurrency is that the big banks suddenly started to talk about cryptocurrencies and big exchanges. How do you see the impact of these big players, of these Goldmans and JP Morgans and all these guys coming into the space? Good, bad?
I think there's no doubt it's good for the ecosystem that they're coming in. The big exchanges, NASDAQ is talking about it, ICE is launching Backed. So definitely the American US exchanges are going into crypto, period. That's already happening. On the banks, it's a bit more polarized. Some of the banks are really cautious about it, but some like Goldman are actually more advanced, building teams around crypto. I think that's a positive thing because eventually real institutional investors won't go in through the traditional crypto brokers necessarily. They need their ISINs and ISDAs and agreements that they're used to and counterparts that they're used to. So I think it enables mostly institutions to come into the space, and that matures a bit the system. So once you have banks offering those services, suddenly you can have custody. Custody leads to ETFs. ETFs leads potentially to more retail consumption, but the problem is it's old financial system wrappers. So these are all like old narratives which don't progress necessarily the technology.
Marco, your organization obviously is set up very differently. Right. So where do you stand on the big players coming in?
Well, so I think it's inevitable that that big institutions are going to come and play, right? There's big piles of money, and whenever there's big piles of money, there's going to be interest. So I do think that they're going to start entering the market space and become active in it, driving things, doing things, and I'm unsure of what the results are going to be because there's going to be a mix between we're going to regulate some things, we are going to leave certain pieces alone. So it will play itself out. It will be interesting in the next couple of months, years to see where this is heading.
If the big players do get involved, though, it is inevitable that we'll see more regulation and more attempts to regulate. So how would that impact the ecosystem?
Well, if I may talk about Decred, we are actually working very, very hard to make it impossible to regulate. So you can regulate a single person, right? So if you live in the United States, you have to abide by those rules. But from a project perspective, we're getting to the point where there is no organization. There is just the Decred project. There is no, you cannot sue the project. You can only sue individuals. Does that make sense? So we are really trying to become a sovereign project, where you as a Decred holder are a sovereign human being making sovereign decisions on your finances.
Frank, anything to add?
This is about the institutions getting involved, yeah? I think it's fine. The good thing is that with Bitcoin and Litecoin, you don't need permission to get started with it. With the Act, you kind of are forced to have a bank account. Banks can certainly provide many benefits for people who want to offload the security aspects of holding onto their coins. But the good thing is that we're not forcing people to do it. Those who want to go to that are more than free to. Those who want to continue holding onto their assets as well, still more than free to do that. Mm-hmm. So I don't think we should be looking at these as awful people. It's just more people doing freely what they want to with their assets.
Right, I can see that we've got a bunch of questions from the audience, so let's give them a chance. I like this one. Today, there exist about 16 different cryptos. How many of them will survive? Do we need all of them?
I think people confuse cryptos with currencies, and therefore they think maybe we need only 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. But people need to think about some of the cryptos like companies. I think there are about 50 million small, medium businesses which are companies, right? Your shawarma shop, your any type of shop, any type of commerce. Generally, what Ethereum through the ICO, which most of these tokens are actually tokens on top of Ethereum, it enabled people to represent some sort of stake or ownership as a token. There are a lot of issues about it. We won't go into it, but I think potentially there could be many, many more utility tokens or company representing tokens or security tokens, and that's not going to stop. There's another question of how many blockchains we need, and that's probably a better, more focused question, because then the answer is probably not more than maybe a couple of dozen, each for a very specific use case.
Gentlemen?
Well, I'll add to that. So I think that there's going to be a bit of a shakeout. I do remember 2013, it was not pretty. Most of the crypto projects did fail at that time. And I think there's going to be something a little bit similar to that. So not everything is a high quality crypto project. So, and that is actually really, the risk that I think exists in the space is systemic risk with certain coins and certain tokens that are going to get shaken out over the next couple of months.
Yeah, it's somewhat subjective. I don't think we need all these things in existence, but because it is permissionless, people can do whatever they want. They can print as many and test out as many ideas they want, and that's fantastic. The market will eventually decide if these things have value, so we shouldn't be stopping them or saying this is an awful thing. They will fail naturally.
Right.
If we want to make cryptocurrencies sustainable into the future, we have to talk about environmental impact and where you stand on that. We've seen that if we genuinely want higher adoption rates, we have to solve this problem. So,
well, I'll take the controversial stance here. There's a lot of stories going around talking about how proof of work is destructive to the environment because it uses so much electricity. So I don't think actually the amount of electricity that's being consumed that's actually the problem. Is how we source that electricity is the problem, right? So what we need to do is switch from coal and other destructive forms of energy and switch to solar and more sustainable ones. We do want to keep the proof of work components because that is actually what secures the network, and it honestly is what gives it value.
On to that, would the switch or difference between proof of work and proof of stake help solve this problem, the sustainability?
Well, so proof of stake has inherent flaws in it, and those flaws cannot be solved technically. The only way you could do that is by having a second layer that secures the network. So pure proof of stake or DPoS or any of those things, they are just not going to survive the future. They need something underneath it to make it work.
Or maybe he's wrong, and proof of stake can work. Again, I'm not running a proof of stake crypto, but a lot of people say it could work, and it does make a lot of sense. So I definitely think there's place for both, and we'll see Ethereum going into proof of stake, and there's currencies like Tezos and EOS with proof of stake, so we'll definitely see those. Proof of work does have its elements as well. I think above environmental issues, we need to think about wealth inequality in the crypto space, which is far more destructive to the space than environmental issues. If right now, and we saw this back in December, January, if right now Bitcoin soars to $50,000, unfortunately we're going to see a lot of bad behavior and a lot of people that just won the lottery. And it's going to be very hard to change that with the current ecosystem. And I think a lot of focus should go into there to understand how can we also help sort of make the distribution of wealth in the crypto system a bit more equal.
Frank, proof of stake?
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of proof of stake. But the reason people bring up this thing about energy with Bitcoin and Litecoin and other cryptocurrencies is because the systems are just so transparent. You can see how everything works, and you can see how much energy is being consumed to run these networks. What you can't see is how much energy is being used to run traditional banking. So you have to print all the cards, you have to print all the paper, people traveling around constantly. All this stuff is hidden. So it's kind of a bad argument to make. And again, many miners, it's a competition who can find the cheapest electricity. So we know many miners are set up in places where the electricity is far cheaper, or they do have renewable energy, but it's just an overflow. So they put that energy that would have been wasted to good use securing these networks.
And I have an interesting thesis and theory around, by the way, how proof of work actually helps the environment. So a friend of mine actually builds power plants, and people come to him now with $200, $300 million projects to actually set up new technology green power plants, and they're basing their entire revenue model on mining Bitcoin. So they can build those green power plants with new technology, which is better and cheaper than coal, etc. And they're basing everything based on the fact they'll be able to mine Bitcoin at $6,500 or $7,000. So actually creating that base sort of crypto to pay for electricity actually pushes the technology of green power forward.
In the last 12 months, not only the big banks started to get involved, but also some governments. So how do you see that evolving? Do we Do you envision a state that will adopt crypto as its currency? What would that do to the ecosystem?
I don't think it really matters. The friendlier states are towards cryptocurrency regulation, the faster and better for the state, not for the cryptocurrency. We have a saying which isn't said nearly as often, but it's, you can take your country out of Bitcoin, but you cannot take Bitcoin out of your country. It's a losing battle. It's permissionless. So you either work with this stuff for the benefit of yourself, or you will get left behind. It's inevitable.
I think one, we're definitely going to see central bank digital currencies in the next 10 years. Slow adopters, but definitely we're going to see central bank digital currencies. They're going to actually push forward also traditional cryptocurrencies, because by nature they're going to be fully KYC'd and fully surveillanced, which means that's going to be the benefit of things like Bitcoin and Litecoin, is that they're under the beyond the surveillance. The second part is, I'll be surprised if we don't see some countries trying to fight Bitcoin to the point of saying it's illegal to hold Bitcoin, it's illegal to deal with Bitcoin. Probably countries where Bitcoin will represent a real risk on the financial stability of the system. You know, places where they've had bank runs, and it's going to be a very delicate situation when we reach that.
So I really think it's going to be a mixed bag, actually. So some countries are going to try to use it, but I also think that countries that are really addicted to debt are going to be unable to use it, right? So if you need to print a whole bunch of new money in order to pay, you know, next month's rent, like some countries are being run, those countries obviously are not going to be able to make that that transition. It would be healthy, though, to have a deflationary asset instead of, you know, printing more money to pay the bills.
So at the beginning of the session, I asked a question of the audience. Let's see if we can get the results on the screen. Not surprising, perhaps, given the audience here. Do you agree, gentlemen? Is crypto here to say 75% yes, 18% I'm not sure, 7% no. Give me one argument each why no is wrong. Because I assume you all think that crypto is here to stay. So can you use the remaining 2 minutes of this session to convince the 8% that voted no?
Cryptocurrencies are just better than any other system of money we've ever created so far. It's not going to die. The technology has already been released out of the box. There's no one who you can go to shut these networks off. Even if it goes down in usage, they're still going to be around. But they just keep going up in usage. We have boom and bust cycles, but every single time it settles higher, more support comes out, more institutions come out, more people use these things because they are better.
I have actually a relatively similar argument. So crypto is here to stay because the genie is out of the bottle. I get to be my own bank. I don't have to ask permission. I don't have to beg a government if I, you know, can send money anywhere in the world. I'm not paying any transaction fees. I'm not going to use that old stuff that cost me money, and you know, it is worth less over time.
I think, by the way, it's not, you know, the question is too binary. There are always going to be 20 geeks running a Bitcoin mining. Even if Bitcoin now goes back to dollar, they're still going to run their mining rigs and run it. So Bitcoin is here forever because there are always going to be those 10 geeks running it. Is the price going to stay where it is? That's a whole different question, and yes, there's probably 8% chance of quantum computers breaking Bitcoin and Bitcoin diving into zero within 30 seconds, and that's done. So maybe that 8% does make sense.
Can I add something to that? So in Decred, we actually have a change mechanism. So if quantum computing would break something, we can actually implement new algorithms to adapt to the future. So I would say even if quantum computing happens and breaks one of the algorithms we use, we'll still be around.
Right, and with that, I'm afraid we're running out of time. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.